This is a review of the NumiQueen from NixieKits.eu for tubeclockdb.com. So this is my first Numitron clock, and frankly I'm really taken by the elegance and the clean lines of the digits that the Numitron has. Probably the whole world already knows about Numitrons, and I'm the last person to discover them, but all the same I'm happy that it's happened late rather than never. So Numitrons are the 7-segment technology that came along before LEDs were everywhere. LEDs became so cheap and so robust, and they were so easy to put into circuitry that they more or less killed everything else that was there before. This stopped the production of things like Numitron and Nixie tubes, and you're going to have problems finding the IV13 tubes, which is the so-called queen of the Numitrons. Nixies are pretty easy to find in comparison, but Numitrons are a bit more exotic and I think more beautiful than the normal Nixies. The IV13s used in the NumiQueen are the largest and the most, I think, beautiful examples of the already pretty beautiful Numitron. So the technology inside the Numitrons themselves is pretty simple. It's a filament driven by a current until it glows red in a vacuum, kind of a sort of underpowered light bulb. Modern filament lamps with a retro look are based on the same idea. A filament glowing warm orange in a vacuum will last for a long time, provided you run them in the right way. If you drive them too hard, they can age quickly, and if you drive them too softly, they don't glow correctly. So this is the innovation that the NumiQueen brings. The filaments are driven using a regulated constant current driver, meaning that manufacturing tolerances of each filament are rendered more or less insignificant. The problem with driving tube filaments with an unregulated or even a regulated constant voltage supply is that individual manufacturing tolerances will mean some filaments draw more and some filaments draw less current. And this means some filaments age more, and eventually one of them will break. And eventually that means that your tube is dead. It's no longer useful. There's another problem as well. If you don't drive them correctly, there's an inrush current. So if you remember back to the days of tungsten filament lamps, that you'll remember that they usually broke when you turned them on. So you flicked the switch and poof, they were broken. And this is due to the inrush current. When you first turn on the tungsten filament, it draws more current because it's cold. Then when it reaches its normal working temperature, because of the positive temperature coefficient, it settles down and then it's fine. So another function, another feature of the NumiQueen is that it's driven by constant current, and also there's preheating. So that means the individual filaments are then kind of warmed up so that they don't suffer from this inrush current. So the NumiQueen clock does everything possible to preserve the life of these valuable and rare Numitrons. And just because so much emphasis has been given to preserving the life of them doesn't mean that you should worry too much about the normal running life of them. That they have a rated life from the datasheet of about 50,000 hours, which is about 6 years of constant use. But the NumiQueen has it's trying to extend this. It's trying to make them last practically indefinitely. And there's a number of features that are in the clock to do this. So we heard about the constant current supplies, we heard about the inrush current limiting, but there's also things like night dimming, night blanking, and modes where you can actually turn the tubes off for days where you're not looking at the clock. So Brian, in the old days, used to have a standard size comparison, which was a can of Diet Coke. Now, I don't drink Diet Coke, so I'm going to have to find something else to compare it with. Let's see what I can find on my desk. Okay, there's a there's a pen. So you can see a normal pen. Let's see if I can find a ruler as well. So here's a ruler. It measures 18 by about 6.5 by about 8. Don't worry about this missing screw, that was me. I lost that. The kit came with it and then I lost it. So let's turn it on and have a look at the clock. There we go. It's lit up with the current time. So although it's been off for 15 minutes or so, the super cap in there keeps hold of the time for you. So the clock as you see it here, including the power supply, including the mains adapter, but excluding the tubes. The tubes I bought myself, is what you get from Jürgen at NixieKits. So you can see it's a complete result. So it's also got a label with a serial number on the bottom, the acrylic case, all of the electronics of course. So it basically means that you can build this in an evening, plug it in, case it up, and by the end of the evening you've got a working clock which you can proudly show to other people. You don't have to run around looking for cases or hide the bird's nest of wires which which there would be normally. And also I chose to have these rather garish changing colour LEDs, so they automatically change colours and cycle through them. But you can also get something a bit more sober from the site. So it looks a little bit like a street parade, but that's just the way that I chose it. Now I don't know whether you can make this out, but let's see. You may just be able to see that the filaments don't entirely go off. Let's see if I can bring it up really close. And we'll wait for a moment. There we are, hold on. It's very difficult to see. But this would be the filament preheating. I'm just waiting for the clock to go into its blanking mode or do some stunts. There we go. Maybe... no, you can't really make it out. Never mind. In a completely dark room, if I were to turn all the lights off, you would probably be able to make it out that the preheating is going on there. So I did a short video about the construction of it. And it suffices to say at this point that this construction is not particularly difficult. Jürgen says that it should be sort of advanced intermediate, but I don't think it's that complicated. I think pretty much anyone that's built a clock before can take this clock build on and succeed within the 3 or 4 hours. Just with kind of normal clock building experience. There's nothing particularly difficult in there. From the feature list, it's a pretty much standard set of features for a tube clock, and if you know any PV Electronics or NixieKits clocks, you'll find everything that you're used to here. The NumiQueen is a completely faithful translation of the Nixie clock features onto Numitrons. Normally the features that you find on these clocks are pretty lackluster, to be honest, but in this case I have to say that it works well. the Numitrons are the things that are the talking point in this clock, not the stunts, you know, the anti-cathode poisoning or whatever that the firmware can do. So just to quickly run down the list of features, it's got 12-hour and 24-hour mode. It's got a variety of date formats. It's got a SuperCat backed up real-time clock. So if you turn it off, let's do that, leave it off for a bit. When you turn it back on, it will still pick up the right time. It's got a night mode, so the tubes can go into dimming mode to preserve the life of them. It's got day blanking. It's got a DST option via a button. So let me just plug it back in and you can see that the time has been counting on. So I can set 1 hour of DST difference. So at the moment we are in DST, so it's 8 o'clock. It's got a whole bunch of different options for time sources. So here's my little NWTS, which basically, whoops, if I find the right hole, now you can see it's happily blinking away in there. So that's all working perfectly. That wasn't very hard to set up. It was set option 12 to 4, which is a GPS module, and option 13 to 1 for 9600 baud, and that was it, and it just worked. The NWTS acquires the time right away. There's no synchronization time, and it's just a really easy solution. It's a 4-button clock, so you can see there's a set button, an adjust button, an alarm button. Of course, one of the features is an alarm, and the DST that we already talked about. And I have to say, I'm impressed by the brightness of the Numitrons, and you know, they're very elegant, they're very clean lines. It's the first time I've seen them in real life, and it's been a great experience getting to know them. They fit pretty tightly into the sockets, so I don't know whether you can make that out, but inside the tubes are all socketed, so if ever you get a problem you can swap them out for debugging or to change them, so that's also very easy as well. What else? The tubes, they look really fragile, and the sockets are quite tight, so by a process of kind of wiggling them in, you can sort of get them in without scaring yourself too much. They fit snugly down onto the case, and well, it all just works perfectly. The sockets are really nice, high quality items, and the only wrinkle I would say in the kit build was getting the sockets aligned on the board properly. Everything else was pretty straightforward. In use, they emit some heat. You can see there's a thermometer in there as well, so there's a little thermometer poking out the bottom, a little heat sensor chip just there. But apparently that's totally normal, and if you can imagine, they're basically little light bulbs. It's clear that they're going to emit some heat. Yeah, timekeeping is excellent, of course, so you would expect that from a clock, and with the addition of the NWTS, of course, it's totally perfect. There's nothing more you can add to that. It just keeps the right time. And in summary, well, I've got to say it's a great product. I was impressed with it. This is the first time I've built a NixieKits clock, and I'm very impressed with it. It gives a great professional looking result right down to the case. One problem is the Numitrons are a bit hard to find. They're relatively expensive. I paid about $30 each for mine, but you know, that's not as expensive as large tubes. And if you do get any problems finding them, then also Jürgen sources them, so you can get them directly from him, and you can get everything out of the same package. So, do I like the NumiQueen? Well, I guess that's already pretty clear. Yes, I do. I've got to say it's my favourite clock at the moment. Would I recommend that you buy it? Well, if you're already into Nixie clocks and you're looking for something a little bit different, and not quite so standard experience, then definitely the NumiQueen is going to be great for you. It's a little bit expensive, but I think the quality of the kit and the result easily justifies it. So as we stand today, the price of the NumiQueen is €179 without tubes, but with including the case and the power supply. Or if you get everything in one go, including the tubes, it's €398. And if you're outside of Germany, there's a shipping markup of, I think it's $5.50 or something. So yes, that's the NumiQueen, the newest member of my Nixie clock family, and one of the most beautiful.